Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I am Violet Diallo, the founder from City, and we were supposed to have done this panel conversation, not panel conversation, this live stream on Monday, and totally my fault. So I'm so appreciative and just in awe because our guest, our featured expert, was so gracious and she is now doing it with us today. So I'm super excited. Today, we're going to talk about finances. I've asked one of our financial experts from our founders program to join us. If you are watching the live session right now, feel free to ask questions. We are here for you. We want to give you all the tools and resources that you need to navigate your finances and build your business. And if you're watching the replay later on, months from now, you can always reach out to our experts as well. So Beth is, as I mentioned, a financial expert. Beth, do you want to mention anything before we get started?
Yeah, I am. Wherever you guys are is probably where I am or I have been. I'm starting my third business. The first one I bootstrapped, the second one I financed, and the third one I self-financed. So I feel like a lot of these financial issues, if I don't answer them on this call, would you please feel free to reach out to me and throw them my way? I'm happy to answer.
Oh, that's great. Thank you again, Beth. Yeah, it's so great to have you as a mentor for women in our community because it's important for us to share our stories and to also, obviously listen to someone who's been through it, understands it, and can help us navigate it in a more wiser kind of way. So let's get started. So, what are the most important financial habits every woman entrepreneur should have in place from day one?
Okay, I got three.
Okay.
Number one, and it doesn't matter if you scrawl it on a napkin or you have an Excel spreadsheet with a million tabs, but you got to have your plan.
Mhm.
The cash you have, what you're going to spend, what kind of revenues you're going to get in on a weekly, monthly basis. So just have that. That's your Bible. It doesn't have to be fancy. The second is, and this one I learned the hard way when I went to a zero cash balance in my first business, which is your income statement is one thing, what you're going to bring in, what you build, what you're going to have to pay, how much cash you have on the bank. Oh, especially in your first year of business, you are watching that like a hawk because it's different than your income statement. You're not collecting as fast, you're not generating revenue as fast. Even if you have a client, they're not paying you as fast. So always remember the difference between those two, which is I have enough money in the bank to pay for only one advertising campaign. Why is that? My income statement shows I should have more. A lot of that has to do with collections and timing of how you pay. So that's a good discussion to have too. But the third is, and this was a hard learned for me, which is you've got to figure out for your business what your weekly dashboard looks like. I had consulting firms. Our weekly dashboard was three things. What did we collect from clients that week that went into the bank account? What are expenses that were due? We tried to pay net 30. What were the ones that we absolutely had to pay that week? And then the third was versus what we thought we would generate in new business, where are we? Are we plus? Are we minus? I didn't need to know what the number was. I just needed to know what the gap was because that is the one number that would help me figure out what next week looked like. Everybody's business is different, but that weekly dashboard should be three things that you need to know every second and they're live or die for you. A lot of other things are nice to have, so you're going to want to see those monthly, but that weekly is what's going to mean you can pay a vendor, you can generate an advertising campaign, or you can hire a new employee. So figure out what those three or four things are, stick them on the top right of your computer, look at them every day, and you'll have nightmares about them every night sometimes.
Yeah. So, and it reminds me, my very first, or one of my first mentors is Joan Barnes, the founder of Gymboree. And one of the first things she told me, my gosh, decades ago, is know your numbers. Know your numbers. I find that we get caught when we are not connected with our
Yeah.
numbers, if we're not looking at them. And then all of a sudden, 4 months go by and we're like, what is happening? Because we don't know our numbers, we're not staying connected to them. Perhaps we're scared, perhaps we're fearful, we don't want to see them. like, you
And
know,
also, like, I found I was just busy. Like, the
yeah.
time I got the most in trouble with cash was because we had had a couple amazing months and you were just delivering. And then you
Right.
suddenly look at your numbers and you go, well, my revenues look great, but I didn't collect any cash because I've been too busy, or I have these massive expenses that are hitting earlier than revenues. I mean, it usually was when things were going great. So I thought, oh, I could just ignore numbers. And I really learned you cannot.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Yeah. Okay, so what's a common financial mistake you see women business owners make, and how can they avoid it?
I think women that I work with fall into one of two categories. Either the sky is falling, so they're hoarding cash, which you cannot do as an entrepreneur. You pick the wrong business to be in if you feel the need to hoard cash in the beginning. They either hoard cash and they don't invest where they need to, or they like my partner and I always said this, we're like spending like drunk sailors. It feels to me like guys don't put the same definition of money that we do. It's just a thing. But for us, it's like if we have enough or we have more, it does something to our self worth. We have to divorce those two. We
Mm,
have to look at it and say, we have money today, but we're not going to have additional money for 2 weeks. So we're going to sit tight. Or we generated more revenues than we thought. We have an additional little stash of cash. And yeah, we can save 20% of it for a rainy day, but the other 80%, we are going to go for it. We are going to invest. And what should we do with it? And I know I was on the spending like a drunk sailor category. My partner was on the hoarding cash. So we actually balanced each other out. But I always think about solopreneurs where they're making that decision themselves,
yeah.
and whatever is their bias about money, they grew up poor, they want to have a 3 months in the bank, or the opposite. My recommendation to them, which is the people that we end up mentoring, this is how we help them a little bit, is get some outside party to look on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis and say, what the hell are you doing with 6 months expenses in your money market account, when for every dollar in Facebook ads you buy, you add $100? You almost need an external person to look at it and say, get your money management and grasp. Now, then this just happened a couple weeks ago, someone had me come in to do exactly that. It was a friend, so I really was able to be critical with them. I looked at it and I said, you're going to run out of money in 3 months. So you are this person you're about to hire, you're not going to be able to pay them unless you jack up revenue by a lot, which you can't do because of the way their business was. It took a while. So sometimes it's also someone hard looking at it and saying, delay that hire, don't do that hire. You're actually burning cash a lot faster than you were. But like you just got to get your relationship with money healthier, and then you got to have your own non-negotiables where you say, I'm always going to have 2 months of expenses in the bank. When you go under that, you don't spend a dime till you build it back up. And when you go over it, you then look at that and say, okay, I can invest a little differently. What should I do with this? But it's like whatever your non-negotiable is about cash and about your conservatism, like that's on a piece of paper, that's in front of you, that's what you're looking at weekly, and you're making financial decisions off that. I bet you people who are affected by tariffs right now are probably being forced to change non-negotiables. But other than that, none of us should be changing them.
Okay. Excellent. Um, that there's a whole other class I feel in that, just that bit of wisdom you just shared. I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, that would be such a great class to dive in a little bit more, because I'm sure women might be asking like, who would I get to help me
Yep.
with that? How, so if you have
And
questions
what are
on
the
that,
questions I ask them, right? Like,
yeah,
what do I
yeah.
ask them to get the most out of it?
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the connection with money and, kind of our narratives at times. So for those that feel a little intimidated by managing money, and I think that's also some sort of societal thing, like girls are bad at math. Like I think there's a whole bunch of other
Yep.
stuff that kind of, but
Yep.
for those that are intimidated, when you talk about numbers, where should they start when it comes to managing money?
So I think, and this is something that took me a couple years, and I'm mad at myself. So I'm not doing it with my third business. You may not know QuickBooks and you may not know Excel, but you have a pencil and a piece of paper, and you can write out two columns. And the left column is what's coming in and the right column is what's going out. And what I learned, because I just didn't like to do that, I thought those were details someone else could deal with. Like, what a joke as an entrepreneur, you don't have anyone else to deal with them. Again, I was super lucky. I had this amazing partner. So to me, the number one is you're going to own those numbers. You're going to write them down in a column and you're going to say, this is what's coming in, this is what's going out. And you're going to get a general idea of, oh, if I increase revenues by 10%, after 6 months, I can actually hire someone, which is exactly what we've done at the Mavericks. We've said, okay, we're now increasing revenue by enough percent that we're going to turn our part time freelancer into a full time employee, right? It's those kinds of decisions. But you're only comfortable doing that if you've done your own math, however you like to do it. You can hire an accountant, you can get your brother-in-law to be your CFO. We all do things like that. But you have to have the mastery of those numbers yourself. That's number one. And then number two, and this is the hardest thing ever, and anyone who knows me will laugh at me, but you have to learn Excel. Like you just have to. It's like $5 for you to buy. There are 50,000 YouTube learning mechanisms to figure it out. And you don't have to learn the bells and whistles. But you do just have to have the most basic income statement and cash flow statement that you've created. Again, even before you put it to the experts, you give it to the CPAs, let them figure it out. But it has to be yours that you're looking at. So you get really clear on pricing. And this was my learning because I'm the worst pricer known to man. When you have enough of a grasp of your numbers, you realize, okay, if I price that for $2, I'm break even, and every month I'm like scrambling for cash. But if I price it for $5, I'm building up my cash reserve. When you internalize that, and again, like I wasn't selling a $5 widget, I was selling $120,000 consulting agreements, and now I'm selling, you know, coaching. I mean, those are very different maths. But whatever it is, the minute you understand what price is going to get you from scrambling to cash reserve for investment, you know how to price. And once you know how to price, unless you're a manufacturer and you've got so many other little details on expenses, once you know how to price and you can get your price, you are now making money and expanding your business. So that was a huge learning for me because I would just read a room and decide how I was going to price it. And it was so stupid. I needed to have what price was going to cover my basic nut, which is how an old mentor of mine whose son's passed away, he would say, what do you need to cover your nut? That.
Yeah.
And then I would say, okay, if I double that, then I got a cash reserve and I can do more. So really think about those two things. And that comes to like you owning your numbers and you internalizing, you know, all the fancy numbers, like what's a profit margin. You just need to know like how you're going to get more cash into your business so you can invest. And if you charge more, you can get it. And then you start to do your own sensitivity analysis, which is, oh, I tried to double the price. That didn't work. Now I'll bring it down 20% and see if that worked. I mean, I think we as women, we want black and white answers. I know that I do. You don't get them. You don't get them in your business. You don't get them in pricing. You don't get them in cash reserves. You just are always tweaking a nozzle to figure out where your price sensitivity is. And it's really hard to do that unless you know Excel.
Yeah.
That's a little hard to do on your scratch piece of paper.
Yeah. My husband worked as a consultant for Burger King for many years, and he would say Burger King knew if they ran a promo, and I don't know Burger King products, so I'm probably going to botch this up, but they knew if their hamburger was on discount for like 29 cents less or 99 cents less, they knew they could expect so much more
Yep.
revenue because sales would hit. So when it comes to pricing, I love that you mentioned, we're not going to always get it right. It's kind of tweaking to see like what works. I sometimes work with women that are like, "Oh, I'm going to double because I saw this coach and she told me to double and triple it and quadruple it." But sometimes it's really that sweet spot. But eventually, as you're using your Excel, like you're saying, you can then run the numbers and say, every time we run it at this price, our
Yep.
revenue jumps up because we sell more.
Yep.
So I love that you mentioned that because I feel women get upset when they price it and then it doesn't go the way that they thought and they
Yes.
don't realize like you have to massage it into place, and it's only through capturing the data will you recognize the patterns so that you can set yourself up for
That's
success
exactly.
with future pricing or products or
And
launches or whatever.
you will not get it right the first time.
Right.
One of our
Right.
consulting products in the second business, we were 50%, and these were like $120,000 agreements. We were 50% wrong under. We didn't realize our audience was not price sensitive because of what we were delivering. And we had 6 months of me underpricing. Like, if you just do the math on how many revenues that we lost because I wasn't doing that sensitivity analysis,
Yeah.
uh, don't,
It,
it's
but
a
you only
good,
know
good
that when you're
exercise.
in it. When you're
Yes.
in it, that's yeah, like in hindsight. And I think everyone's been through that. So
So
I love
true.
I love that I love how you're sharing the reality of it.
Oh, God,
Because we
yeah.
don't ever hear that. We don't ever hear that. We always hear like, oh, she started it and she made like $1 billion and da-da.
No,
And it's like, that's not how it works.
not
So
even close.
yeah, yeah. So how should entrepreneurs approach paying themselves? So that's another question that we get a lot from our communities. Like how do I pay myself? When do I pay myself? Especially in the early stages of their business when they are just starting to get, I think most of the people that are going to be benefiting from this are probably coaches or people that are certainly selling services, not so
Yep.
much product based, but that's a really big thing there too. And you talked a little bit about when to hire and when to know to hire and to have that analysis as well. But I think even before they get there, I know some are struggling like, can I pay
Yep.
myself if I get a little bit more bump? Like what's your
Yeah.
thought on that?
So I have a radical thought on that, which is why I raised money in businesses and then I self-funded, but I put cash in the business on day one. I totally respect bootstrapping, um, but I never really did it. I either raised a little or I raised a little more than a little because of this. When you don't pay yourself, unless you've got some trust fund that I never had,
Right.
you are literally limiting the runway of your business. And I also think you are allowing yourself an excuse to fail, right? Well, I gave it 3 months, I need a job, I can't make it. So there are something very different than 25 years ago when I started my business. We always have friends and family, and we don't have to raise 250,000 from them. Maybe we just have to raise 20. The
Hmm.
discipline in raising that 20 or 25 is that we have to put a business plan in place. We have to be able to sell it with a straight face. And we have to have an income statement that says, look, if I could just get a 6 month cushion, I don't have to invest that much after 6 months. I'm going to start generating revenue or not. And hey, my business model actually doesn't make any sense because I can't do that. So I think friends and family, but the thing that wasn't around 20 years ago when I started, 25 years ago when I started, is there are grants, there are incubators, there are so many different sources of funding. The only thing we had 25 years ago was a small business association, which by the way is still a really amazing place
Yeah.
to start with. And that score group they have is amazing. They have mentors, they help you raise money. So I would say if you are able to somehow beg, borrow, steal even a small amount of money that extends your runway so that you're getting paid, maybe you're not getting paid what you were in the corporate job, but you're covering your own personal set of expenses, you just bought yourself a longer runway for a business, which
Yeah.
means you just decreased the risk of your business working by a lot. So I would, before launch, I would spend several months trying to get some money in the bank that wasn't just mine so that I could pay myself some level for the first year. And I will tell you that with each business I have been in, except the third one, which is right now, because I didn't need it, the first two, we put money in the bank that gave us a low, 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 low salary. Like we went with our second business, our salary was 10%, and you heard that right. It was 10% of the corporate job that we left. But it covered our basic expenses when we put in savings. And because of both those, we had 6 or 9 months to really start to generate revenues. And we could make a couple mistakes. If you
Yeah.
don't have 3 months, you have to make almost no mistakes, which we hope you do, but your chances are low. So I say go out and try and there's lots of different sources and people can reach out to me too. And I can definitely send them ways that I've seen work or I've seen colleagues make work. But I think I
Yeah.
try and raise a little money
Yeah.
to be able
I,
to pay
I
yourself a little.
Yeah, I remember when we started Fem City, we raised a little bit of money, I think like 35 or 45,000.
Yeah.
And I also recognized that I went from having a PR agency that was very profitable, was doing really, really well. It was just me and then a bunch of freelancers. So it was pretty
Yeah.
cash. It was great. Um, and I started FemCity. I thought we were going to make revenue faster than we did. We didn't. And after a year or two, I ended up selling my Mercedes Benz. I pulled my kids out of private school. I cut all my expenses down to the bare bone. And I put so much more into FemCity in order to
Yep.
get it, So there are those stories where I believed in it. Like I didn't have a backup plan. I was like, I really believe in the work that we're doing, and I believe that it will make a difference and it will be profitable.
And
But
you're
it was
seeing,
rough.
right? You were
Yeah.
seeing things begin to work.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not as if you didn't see the runway to say people are interested, we're doing this. My partner in the second business, who's my partner today, she took the maximum loan out from her 401k, which at the time I was like, you cannot do that. You
Yeah.
have 5 kids. She has 5 kids. I have 4. I was like, you cannot do that. She was amazing. She was like, yeah, I can. This is going to work. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's the single worst financial advice ever. So none of you please do that. But
Yeah.
it really paid off for her. And the one other thing I would just throw out is I know there's always, I don't want to take on credit, I don't want to take out loans. Community banks have very small, but they have them, portfolios where they want to lend to diverse entrepreneurs, which includes women. To take out 50,000 from your community bank and get to pay it over, 2 years or whatever, that's pretty powerful stuff. And they do want to do a little bit of that. So again, I would take equity or I would take a small loan to give myself the runway, which is the runway you needed for Fem City, which is like, thank
Yeah.
God that you did it and you sold your Mercedes. We all thank you for it.
Yeah, yeah, it was rough, and people thought I was insane. And we also did do a loan with SBA, and that has been
There you
very
go.
helpful as well. So yeah, SBA is a great option as well. All right, so my gosh, I love this conversation so much, and I know we're running out of time. We have like 8 minutes left. Okay, so you talked a little bit about credit and loans to grow your business. Um, I think we covered that. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about when it comes to
No, but the
loans?
one thing I would say is please, 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 before you do what I did with the first business, which is put everything on your credit card,
Yeah,
which we all know has a terrible rate, just investigate the loan opportunities at your bank. There's so many community banking, SBA. Investigate that before, because we all know that credit cards are like a vice on your head.
yeah, yeah,
So do everything in your power. And if your only choice was putting on your credit card, even though this is opposite, this is exactly what I did.
yeah.
Going back to our cash reserve discussion, I had the revenues for the investments I made. I hadn't collected the cash. Everything
Mm,
I hadn't collected, like 55,000, I put on my credit card until I collected it. I
yeah.
mean, no one do that, although half of you are probably going to do it because it's the easiest thing, but just, that's a vice on your head. It's better to take a couple months and really investigate the other options before you have an 18.5% ticking time bomb,
Yeah.
in the mail every
Yeah. Or
month.
20, yeah, 22% or
Or
25. Yeah. So my first company was a personal training company. I started that when I was 22 years old. And I remember getting on the phone with the SBA or SCORE. It was either SBA or SCORE.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I need a loan. I need to get equipment. And it was like a mobile personal where I would go into people's homes and train them there.
Okay,
And
that's
I
cool.
remember the lady, the lady on the other line, she was like, "How much do you need?" And I was like, "I think 3,000 should cover it." And she was like, she recommended, she's like, "For $3,000, your best bet is just to put it on a credit card." And I put it on a Discover credit card. It was like, I couldn't believe it. I had never put so much on a credit card in my entire life. I bought like just the basic, I think, business cards, because back in the day, I mean, I'm talking
Yeah.
1994, 1995. I got business cards. I made flyers. I did a couple advertisement pieces in like our local newspaper. Did the logo myself, like hand sketched the logo myself, and just got dumbbells and like little things that I could just put in my car, and that was it. But I remember just having that because it was a really high interest rate, probably because I had no credit. It was
Right, you were young. Yeah.
22. I was a brand new like human, and yeah, and it worked out. But it was yeah, it was really scary. So for those of you out there, it's really a scary. The whole thing is scary, but it develops
And
grit. and so much more.
One other thing I forgot to bring up, because this didn't exist when you were putting stuff on your Discover card or when I
Yeah.
was putting on my MasterCard, is, you know, crowdsourcing funding, crowdfunding.
Mm.
This is amazing, but there's stats that show women are almost twice as successful as men at raising money, even though we know women only raise 2% of venture funding because of the amazing bias in that institution that I've been part of.
Mhm.
So I've seen it. So you might also think on the crowdfunding. And by the way, the number one reason from the research that's been done why women are able to raise more money than men is because we put out much more credible business plans. We're able to answer questions better and we're more believable. So again, that was not something that you could do to raise 10 grand 15 years ago. It is something you can do. And some of our mentees are doing it as we speak. And they've got super, super clear business plans. And those are the ones that really seem to hit that people are willing to invest in.
That's amazing. All right, Beth, I had so many other questions, but we're running out of time, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to share. So I'm sure a lot of our members and our community would want to learn more about the work that you're doing, stay connected to you. What's the best way that
Yeah.
they can find you?
First of all, please do. So my amazing partner and myself have go on Instagram, Female Mavericks, go on LinkedIn, Female Mavericks, subscribe to our newsletter, which is free, and it's got this content in. And if you go back and you look at some of the earlier newsletters, all from the past 6 or 9 months, we really go step by step in like, how do you raise money? What does your business plan look like? We have a whole section we're writing as we speak on how do you figure out what your cash reserves should be? Who should your kitchen cabinet of really smart people be? What are
Yeah,
organizations like FemCity, which is amazing, that would be helpful to you? So right now, all that content is free. We do coaching. We'll do a community that will come out in the next couple months. We are super lucky and that we have a publishing date for our book in September. Our entire goal, and we're the moms of a total of 9 kids, ranging from age 5 to all the way up to 23. Trust me, my kids are on the higher end of that range. And so much of the content you see is meant to be practical. And one of the things, if you're just in launch mode, that might be helpful for you to read is we talk a lot about how the business model that you choose at the beginning is also the lifestyle choice you're choosing. And moms, as much as we might want to have that business where we work 24/7, we also want our kids not to go to jail. And so
yeah,
we talk a lot about the way to build different business models that as they scale to 7 figures and above, both of our businesses scaled well beyond that. We sold the first 2 businesses combined for almost 40 million in enterprise value. Like we did it, but we did it as moms. So we're super sensitive to that. And the content, honestly, is all about how you can attempt to do both and that it is possible. Because our reaction always was, okay, every guy thinks they can have a successful business, even if they're like, I'm going to, it's a new shoelace. Whereas women who have the cure for cancer are like, I don't know if I can do this. So the whole
yeah,
intent of the content is to get you motivated to know that you can do it and then also give you like super practical thoughts
on how to
on,
do it.
yeah, that's our goal. We want 10,000 moms to build 7 figure businesses. If we got there, we would be ecstatic because by doing
That's
that, we
amazing.
gave our families financial freedom, which was amazing. And
Yeah,
none of
I
my
love
kids are
it.
in jail. They're actually all talking to me and they're amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. All right. Well, thank you so much, Beth. I so
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
all your advice. And for those femmes that are watching the replay later on, you now know how to get in touch with her. And I'm just very grateful for your time. Thank you so much,
Oh, it was
Beth.
great. And I love Fem City. So thank you for creating
Oh,
it.
thank you. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.